sat at her desk, her brown hair elegantly tied in a bun, her eyes focused on the architectural designs in front of her. The golden rays of the late afternoon sun spilled through the window, illuminating the room with a soft warmth. The lines on the paper reflected her precision and dedication, symbols of years of hard work and sacrifice. Across the room, Pedro, her husband of 7 years, lounged in an armchair with a book in hand. His dark hair and easy smile gave him an air of youthful charm, though his furrowed brow suggested he was lost in thought. The apartment was peaceful, filled with the comforting hum of their routines. But beneath this picture of calm, there was something unspoken. A tension lingered in the air, invisible but heavy, like a storm cloud on the horizon. For months, their once effortless conversations had been replaced by awkward silences. The shared laughter they used to enjoy seemed like a distant memory. Anna, always composed and reserved, had built walls around her emotions, while Pedro's natural warmth was slowly being chipped away by his growing insecurities. It wasn't that they didn't love each other. The affection was still there, in fleeting moments, stolen glances, and gentle touches. But something was missing, something vital. They both felt it, yet neither dared to confront it until the letter arrived. The plain white envelope lay innocuously on the side table in the living room. There was no stamp, no return address, just Anna and Pedro's names written in an unfamiliar hand. Anna hesitated as she picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. A strange unease settled in her chest, a feeling she couldn't quite place. With a deep breath, she opened the envelope and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. Her eyes scanned the words, and her heart stopped. You cannot hide forever what you did in Paris. Pedro deserves to know the truth. The words were like a punch to the gut. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. She read the letter again, hoping she had misunderstood, but the message remained the same, vague but undeniably threatening. Pedro noticed her pale face and furrowed brow. What is it? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Anna handed him the letter without a word. Pedro's eyes darkened as he read it. His jaw tightened and his grip on the paper grew white-knuckled. What is this supposed to mean? He demanded, his voice a mixture of confusion and anger. Anna opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She knew exactly what the letter referred to, a secret from her past that she had buried long ago, a chapter of her life she had never intended to share. The argument that followed was raw and emotional. Pedro's voice rose in accusation, his insecurities bubbling to the surface. Why didn't you tell me about this? What happened in Paris, Anna? I didn't tell you because it didn't matter anymore, Anna replied, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. It was part of my past, before you, before us. I didn't think it would ever resurface. Pedro paced the room, running a hand through his hair. But someone clearly thinks it matters. Someone is trying to use it against us. We need to find out who sent this letter. Anna nodded. Despite the turmoil swirling inside her, she knew Pedro was right. They couldn't let this anonymous threat hang over them. They had to confront it head on. Their investigation started with the letter itself. Pedro analyzed every detail, the handwriting, the paper quality, the envelope. They compared the writing to friends and acquaintances, searching for a match. They even considered hiring a private investigator, but Anna insisted on handling it themselves. The first suspect was an old colleague of Anna's from her time in Paris, an ambitious architect named Julian. He had been charming but manipulative, and their brief relationship had ended on a sour note. Pedro and Anna traveled to Paris to confront him. Julian denied any involvement, claiming he hadn't thought about Anna in years. His alibi checked out, leaving them back at square one. Next, they turned their attention to Sophie, an old friend of Anna's who had always been a little too interested in her personal life. But Sophie, too, had an airtight alibi. With each dead end, their frustration grew. The search for answers began to take a toll on their relationship. Old wounds were reopened, and new doubts emerged. Weeks passed, and the investigation seemed to go nowhere. Anna and Pedro found themselves at odds more often than not, their patience wearing thin. But then, a breakthrough came in the form of a seemingly insignificant detail. Pedro noticed something peculiar about the letter, a specific word, rarely used, that he recognized as one of his own linguistic quirks. His mind raced as he pieced together the implications. Anna, too, noticed a familiar fold in the envelope, a crease that mirrored the way Pedro often folded his notes. The realization hit them both at the same time, like a thunderclap. "Pedro," Anna whispered, her voice barely audible, "did you write this letter?" Pedro's face turned pale. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, in a voice filled with regret, he confessed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," Pedro said, his eyes filled with tears. "I wrote the letter in a moment of weakness. I was afraid of losing you, afraid that there was something you were hiding from me. I thought if I pushed you, you'd tell me the truth." Anna stared at him, her emotions a whirlwind of shock, betrayal, and a strange sense of relief. "You did this because you were insecure?" Pedro nodded. "It was stupid and immature. I didn't know how else to deal with my fears. I never meant to hurt you." The weight of his words hung heavily between them. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Anna took a deep breath. "Pedro, you broke my trust, but I understand why you did it. I've kept things from you too. Maybe it's time we stop hiding and start being honest with each other." The road to rebuilding their relationship was not an easy one. The scars from the letter lingered, and trust had to be earned back slowly. Anna and Pedro attended couples therapy, learning to communicate openly and without judgment. Anna shared more about her past in Paris, not just the secrets, but the experiences that had shaped her. Pedro listened, truly listened, without interrupting or judging. In turn, he opened up about his own insecurities, the deep-seated fears he had carried for years. The process was painful, but it was also healing. Months later, Anna and Pedro stood on the balcony of their apartment, watching the sunset. The golden light bathed the city in warmth, a stark contrast to the darkness they had endured. "I'm glad we went through it," Pedro said, his arm wrapped around Anna's shoulders. "It wasn't easy, but I feel like we're stronger now." Anna smiled, leaning into him. "Me too. No more secrets, no more letters, just us." The storm that had once threatened to tear them apart had passed. In its wake, it left a relationship that was no longer perfect, but real, built on truth, vulnerability, and an unbreakable bond. Anna's pulse raced as her eyes darted between the countless emails on her computer screen. Each one felt like a jab at her sanity, a string of anonymous messages taunting her, unraveling secrets she had buried long ago. The most recent email, short and cryptic, sent a chill down her spine. "You can't run forever." Pedro stood behind her, his gaze fixed on the screen. His face was a mask of calm, but Anna could see the tension in his clenched jaw and the slight tremor in his hands. "We need to involve the police," he said, breaking the silence. "This has gone too far." Anna shook her head, panic bubbling in her chest. "If we go to the police, it'll make everything public. Everyone will know." Her voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken fears. Pedro knelt beside her, placing a firm but gentle hand on her arm. "Anna, we're past the point of protecting reputations. Whoever is behind this isn't going to stop until they destroy you." The truth of his words hung in Anna's mind whirled with questions. Who could hate her enough to orchestrate something this sinister? And why now, after all these years. Determined not to let fear consume her, Anna took a deep breath and leaned closer to the screen. "We'll figure this out," she whispered, more to herself than to Pedro. "But not like this. We need to dig deeper, go back to the beginning." The next morning, Anna and Pedro found themselves in a small, dimly lit cafe in a less frequented part of town. It was the kind of place where conversations faded into the hum of old jazz records, and no one asked too many questions. Anna's fingers tapped anxiously on the table as they waited for someone she hadn't seen in years, Julian. He had been more than a colleague back in Paris. He was a confidant, a brief but intense chapter in her life before Pedro. If anyone knew who might hold a grudge against her, it was him. When Julian finally arrived, his appearance startled Anna. He looked older, worn down by time and perhaps regret. His eyes lit up with recognition as he spotted her, though a flicker of something unreadable passed over his face when he saw Pedro. "Anna," Julian greeted, his voice warm but guarded. "It's been a long time." "Too long," Anna replied, forcing a smile. "Thanks for coming. I wouldn't have asked if it wasn't important." Julian's eyes narrowed slightly as he sat down. "I figured. What's going on?" Pedro wasted no time. "Someone's been sending Anna threatening messages, bringing up her time in Paris. We think it might be someone from her past." Julian leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Paris. That's a long list of suspects." His tone was light, but there was an undercurrent of seriousness beneath his words. "You had quite a life there, Anna." Anna bristled at the implication, but kept her composure. "I need to know if there's anyone at all, who might want to hurt me." Julian's expression darkened. He glanced around the cafe before leaning in closer. "There was someone," he said quietly. "Do you remember Camille?" Anna's breath caught in her throat. Of course she remembered Camille. How could she forget? Camille had been a rising star in the architecture world, a brilliant but volatile woman with a knack for holding grudges. The rivalry had started professionally, but quickly turned personal. "Camille left Paris years ago," Anna said, her voice barely audible. "I haven't heard from her since." Julian nodded slowly. "She left Paris, yes, but she didn't disappear. I heard she moved back here a few years ago. Rumor has it she's been keeping tabs on old acquaintances." The drive back home was silent, the weight of Julian's revelation pressing down on them. Pedro kept his eyes on the road, his grip on the steering wheel tightening with each passing mile. Anna stared out the window, her mind racing. Camille. The name echoed in her thoughts like a ghost from a forgotten nightmare. Could it really be her? Back at the apartment, Anna immediately began searching online. It didn't take long to find her. Camille Laurent, now running a boutique architecture firm in the heart of the city. Pedro leaned over her shoulder, reading the glowing articles about Camille's recent successes. "She's done well for herself," he muttered, "but why come after you now?" Anna's fingers hovered over the keyboard, her heart pounding. "There's only one way to find out," she said, determination hardening her voice. Pedro looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of concern and admiration. "Are you sure about this?" Anna nodded. "I've spent too long running from my past. It's time to face it." The next day, Anna stood in front of the sleek glass doors of Camille's office. The building loomed above her, its modern facade reflecting the afternoon sun. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The receptionist greeted her with a polite smile. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Anna replied. "But tell Camille that Anna is here to see her. She'll want to make time." Minutes later, Anna found herself in Camille's office, face to face with a woman she hadn't seen in over a decade. Camille looked exactly as Anna remembered, elegant, composed, and utterly unreadable. "Anna," Camille said, her lips curling into a faint smile. "What a surprise!" Anna forced herself to remain calm. "I think you know why I'm here." Camille arched an eyebrow, feigning innocence. Do I? You've been sending me messages, Anna said, her voice steady, dragging up things from the past, trying to scare me. Why? Camille leaned back in her chair, studying Anna with a predator's gaze. Because you took everything from me, she said, her voice cold. And now, I'm taking it back. Anna stood frozen, her breath caught in her chest. Camille's words echoed in the room, each syllable dripping with bitterness and something far more dangerous, pure intent. You took everything from me, Camille repeated, rising from her chair and circling around her desk like a lion stalking its prey. My career, my reputation, and the trust of the people who mattered most. You walked away unscathed while I was left picking up the pieces. Anna clenched her fists, her pulse racing. That's not true, she said, her voice trembling with anger. We competed. We pushed each other. But whatever happened after, that was your choice, Camille. Camille chuckled, the sound cold and sharp. My choice? Is that how you remember it? She stopped inches from Anna, her eyes blazing with fury. You manipulated everyone around you, turned them against me. I lost everything because of you. Anna shook her head, refusing to be drawn into Camille's distorted version of the past. I never wanted to hurt you. We were ambitious, yes, but you were always talented. You didn't need anyone's approval to succeed. For a brief moment, Camille's expression softened, as if Anna's words had struck a hidden nerve. But then, just as quickly, her face hardened once more. That's sweet of you, Camille said, her voice dropping to a whisper. But you're wrong. I did need something you took from me. And now, I'm here to take it back. Before Anna could respond, Camille reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small folder, tossing it onto the desk between them. Look inside, Camille said, her eyes gleaming with triumph. With trembling hands, Anna opened the folder. Inside were photos, dozens of them, showing her at various events, meetings, even in her own home. They had been taken without her knowledge, documenting her every move for months, if not longer. Pedro's voice suddenly echoed in her mind. We're past the point of protecting reputations. Her stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't just a grudge. It was a carefully orchestrated plan. Anna slammed the folder shut, glaring at Camille. You've been following me, spying on me. Why? Camille leaned against her desk, crossing her arms. Because I wanted you to feel what it's like to be watched, to live in fear, the same fear I lived with for years. Fear won't give you back what you lost, Anna said, her voice steady now, her initial shock giving way to a fierce determination. And it won't fix the past. Camille's smile was razor sharp. Who said I wanted to fix anything? I want to burn it all down and watch you fall with it. Anna took a step back, her mind racing. She needed to stay calm, to think clearly. Camille wasn't just angry, she was dangerous. You're not untouchable, Anna said, her tone carefully measured. I can take all of this to the police. You've crossed the line. Camille's eyes narrowed. Go ahead, but do you really think they'll believe you? Or will they believe the perfectly curated story I've been building for months? Anna's heart sank. Camille had thought of everything. Every move Anna made had been anticipated. Every option carefully calculated. But Anna wasn't ready to give up. Back at the apartment, Anna paced the living room, while Pedro watched her with a concerned expression. We need a plan, she said, her voice resolute. We can't just sit here and wait for Camille's next move. Pedro nodded. Agreed. But first, we need proof. Something that connects her to those emails and the photos. If we can gather enough evidence, we can turn this around. Anna stopped pacing and turned to him, a flicker of hope lighting up her eyes. Julian, she said. He knows more than he let on. Maybe he can help. The next morning, Anna and Pedro met Julian in the same cafe. The air between them was thick with tension. You were right, Anna said, wasting no time. It's Camille. She's been behind everything. Julian leaned back, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. I suspected as much, he said. But if Camille's involved, it's more serious than you think. She has connections, people who owe her favors. She won't go down easily. Then we need to be smarter, Pedro said. Help us, Julian. You know how she operates. There has to be a way to outmaneuver her. Julian hesitated, glancing around the cafe. There's a way, he said quietly, but it's risky. We'll need to draw her out, make her think she's won. And when she's at her most confident, we strike. The plan was set in motion that evening. Anna sent Camille a message, carefully crafted to sound like a desperate plea. You win. Let's meet and settle this no more games. Hours later, Camille responded with a single word. Tomorrow. Pedro placed a hand on Anna's shoulder. We'll be ready, he said. But Anna couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more dangerous than they had prepared for. The cafe was nearly empty when Anna arrived the next morning, her footsteps echoing softly against the tiled floor. She scanned the room, her eyes locking on Camille, who sat at a corner table, calmly stirring her coffee. The tension in the air was palpable, thick and suffocating. Anna approached slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She forced herself to remain calm, her face carefully composed. Pedro stood a few steps behind, watching closely from the entrance, ready to intervene if things went south. Camille gestured to the empty chair across from her. Sit, she said, her tone almost friendly. Let's not drag this out any longer. Anna hesitated for a brief second before sitting down. Camille leaned forward, her eyes glinting with something that sent a chill down Anna's spine. You've been busy, Camille said with a sly smile. I admire your persistence, truly, but persistence won't save you this time. Anna met her gaze, refusing to be intimidated. I'm not here to save myself, she said. I'm here to stop you. Camille chuckled, the sound low and sinister. Stop me. Oh, Anna, you still think you have control. That's adorable. Anna leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. You made a mistake, Camille. You underestimated me. You left a trail, one I've already followed. For the first time, Camille's smile faltered. Her eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Anna reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of documents, placing them on the table between them. These, she said, emails, bank transfers, photos, evidence that ties you to everything, the blackmail, the sabotage, even the surveillance. Camille's eyes flicked to the documents, her jaw tightening. You think this is enough to bring me down? She said, her voice icy. You don't know who you're dealing with. Anna leaned back, a small, confident smile playing on her lips. Actually, I do, and I know exactly how to end this. Camille's bravado cracked, just for a moment. She grabbed the documents, flipping through them rapidly. Her breathing quickened, and for the first time, she looked uncertain.